1492, Castile, and the man in this story is you. Your name is Cristobal Colon, so what does half a world pay? Stay to the end of your day and tell me, better than your pay now, or worse? Christopher Columbus did not die poor, he simply never got paid. You're a Genoese weaver's son, no title, no land, no ship. In April, you sign one sheet of paper. It hands you 1/10 of everything that hemisphere will ever send home. Untaxed, forever, and your son's after you. Sounds like a jackpot? 14 years on, that sheet pays you nothing. You know the schoolbook version by heart. A dreamer talks a queen into 3 ships, finds a new world, dies forgotten in a rented room without a coin. Half of that is true, just not the half you expect. So we won't count the legend, we'll count the paperwork, because yours survived. Contract, court case, will. And in the room where you die, iron hangs on a nail. Shackles, your own. You forbid anyone to take them off. Why does a man with his name back keep his irons by the bed for 5 years? We'll get there. Santa Fe, the 17th of April. A town of raw stone the army threw up to strangle Granada, and Granada has just handed over the keys. You have followed this court 7 years. 7 years, my friend. They turned you down twice because the royal experts read your arithmetic and said it plainly. His distance is wrong. And you know what? It was. Yet 2 monarchs, fresh out of a war that ate their lives, bet on a foreigner. Why now? Because they won, and nobody checks sums the week after a victory. A secretary, Juan de Coloma, sits down to copy your terms onto one sheet. Let's open your payslip. Strange one. No wage on it at all. Earnings, 1/10 of the gold, silver, pearls, and spices out of your lands across the ocean. No tax taken. Admiral of the ocean sea, and your heirs keep the rank. Governor of any land you reach, 1/8 of every voyage you help pay for. Pretty, isn't it? Now the deductions. The clerk dips his pen and adds 5 words. Payable after costs. Stop. Read that line again. Who counts the costs? The man who pays them. That question runs 3 centuries. Your own payslip works the same way, only the print is smaller. The clerk shakes sand over the wet ink. The sand grinds. While it grinds, you are already poorer than you walked in, and 1/8 costs money, and you don't own 1 maravedis, the little Castilian coin they counted everything in. What do you carry home on signing day? A title, a debt, and a promise. 1/10. Everything that happens next, to you, to your son, to your grandson, every one of the next 44 years starts with that line. 1/10 of all a hemisphere ever sends home across the sea. Forever. And to your blood after you. In today's money, measure it by labor and you land in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Roughly, because there is no honest rate between centuries. Historians can't name a second private income like it in Europe. Not a duke, not a banker, not a king's cousin. Today, you are the richest man in Christendom, on paper. Now guess how much of that 1/10 reaches your grandson when the argument dies. Nope, lower, much lower. So where does a man without a penny find 1/8 of a fleet? He borrows. Historians put your share at roughly 250,000 maravedis, and not one of those coins is yours. Every last one taken on your word. I'll pay you out of my cut. There is no cut yet. There is a promise. The lenders are Italian merchants in Seville and the Pinzon brothers out of Palos. Martin Alonso Pinzon owns the Pinta, and the port trusts him, which it does not do with you. He brings the crews. He puts in his own silver. The yard smells of pitch and wet canvas, your palms full of splinters. So here's the first price of this deal. You sail out owing 3 men, and that debt comes back as gold. How you get that gold is what earns you the irons. Out of Palos on the 3rd of August, a month stuck in the Canaries because the Pinta's rudder tore loose. On the 6th of September, the islands drop astern, water on every side. Your compass starts lying to you. The needle creeps off the North Star, and nobody aboard knows why. So you keep 2 logs, The true one for yourself, the short one out loud for the crew. Your sailors are out here for wages. You are out here for a share. Turn back and they still get paid. You get nothing. You are lying to men with nowhere to go. The 10th of October, salt crust on your lips, your deck. 5th week, no land. Admiral, turn her around. And you haggle like a cloth merchant. 3 days, no land in 3 days, we go home. 3rd day of the 3 you bargained for, the 12th of October, around 2 in the morning. The Pinta is out front, the fastest of them. A sailor named Rodrigo de Triana sees a white line of surf and yells loud enough to carry across all 3 decks, "Land! Land!" The Pinta fires her bombard. The smoke blows sideways. Whoever sights land first gets money for life, promised by the crown before you sailed. His name goes in the log. Who collects it gets decided 6 months later in a room full of candles. At dawn, you step onto the sand of Guanahani, and which island that is, historians still argue. The first man to work on that beach isn't you, it is your clerk. Christmas night. The sea is like oil, no wind at all. You haven't slept in 2 days, so you go and lie down. The watch officer goes too and hands the tiller to a ship's boy because the night is quiet. The current does the rest. A soft scrape under the hull, then a louder one. The Santa Maria settles onto a reef. By dawn, your flagship is a heap of wet planks, and the planks aren't yours. You chartered her. Guacanagari's canoes and divers save every last barrel by morning. You cut the wreck into a stockade and a tower and call the fort La Navidad. 39 men stay behind because the Niña can't carry them all. You tell them, "Gather gold, I'll be back in the spring." On paper, this colony stands and works. How long do you think it lasts? Back at court, parrots, a handful of gold, and 7 taino, nobody asked. April 1493. The monarchs let you sit in their presence. Almost nobody gets that. And where is Martin Alonso Pinzon, the man who carried you on his own silver? His Pinta reached Spain ahead of your Nina. He sent the court a letter, "Receive me separately." The answer came back short. Only together with the Admiral. He came with nobody. He died at home in Palos 2 weeks after he got back. He gave this everything he had and got nothing. Then it gets worse. The crown kept its promise of money for life for that first shout, with one correction. 10,000 maravedis a year, every year until you die. And they hung it on the butcher's stalls of Seville. The whole city buys meat, and a slice off every carcass comes to you. Rodrigo did the shouting. You do the collecting, because at court you announced, "I saw a light on the water first, 4 hours before him." And they believed you, because a court believes an admiral, not a deckhand. What became of Rodrigo, historians argue. The story says he sailed to Africa and changed his faith. The crown saved a pension and lost a man. Say it with me. There is always a middleman. This time it is you, and the crown, delighted, hands over 17 ships and 1,200 men. Your fleet isn't fitted out by you. It is fitted out by Juan Rodriguez de Fonseca, archdeacon of Seville, the crown's man for supply. You demand the household your rank is owed. Fonseca, not lifting his eyes off the list, licks a finger and turns the page. That is more than you are allowed. He cuts your men, cuts your stores, and writes to Castile that the Admiral is overreaching. Enemies for life. And here is the trouble. He sits on Indy's business for 30 years and outlives you by 18, dying Bishop of Burgos, comfortable. The man who held the pen over your lists comes out of this better than anyone in it. The ink on his fingers hasn't washed off in 3 days, and your future lies on his desk between the salt pork barrels and the inkwell. Your case isn't opened by a court. It is opened by an office, and that office is forging your irons. 11 months later, you bring 17 pennants back to that beach and fire a gun into the dark. Silence. No answering fire, no boat, just surf. In the morning, you go ashore. Burnt stockade, chests broken open, rags in the sand. Not one man alive. People came down from the hills, Guacanagari swears, and shows you a wound in his side. Your Dr. Chanka looks and tells you quietly, there is no wound. You say nothing, because you have no other ally on this island, and 1,200 men are standing on deck behind you who came to build a town. And he is the one cacique who never raises a weapon against you. His own people drop him for it, and he ends, they say, in the mountains with nothing. The Spaniards write home a different story. The garrison tore itself apart over gold and women. Historians argue. 39 you left, not one you took back. Go explain that to the deck. On paper, everything starts here. The deck doesn't want an explanation. So you take them along the coast, and in January, you plant a town, Isabella, named for the woman who signed your sheet. You build fast because Castile has to hear that the colony stands and the gold is coming. One of your sailors looks at the bay and says what everyone is thinking. Admiral, no ship will ride out a blow here. He is right. The roadstead is open, there is no good water, and by spring, fever knocks your people flat. You can find an island across an ocean by stars and dead reckoning. Nobody taught you to build a city, but that sheet made you governor, so this shore is yours to answer for. The contract handed you the job, and the same job puts the irons on your wrists. And for the 1,200 men who came ashore with you, they did not sign up to dig. Hidalgos, younger sons, a sword, no land, plenty of debt. They were promised gold and they get a hoe and a cassava flatbread that sticks to the roof of the mouth. One of them, cleaning his nails with a dagger, says it to your face. I did not cross an ocean to hoe a garden. Picture a building site staffed entirely with foremen and one shovel between them. You cut the ration because the bread ran out and the next supply ship comes when the crown finds it convenient. And your accountant, Bernal de Pisa, can't find your gold in the books, so he writes a complaint home. Your work gets judged by his report, not by the gold that shipped. You lock him up on a ship, and he gets there, and his paper joins the stack they come for you with. There is nothing like the gold on Hispaniola that you promised in writing, so you invent a levy. Every taino over 14 in your mining districts turns in 1 hawk's bell of gold dust every 3 months. Turn it in, wear a copper token on the cord. A hawk's bell is a trinket for falconry, worth nothing back home. And those streams do not hold enough gold to fill one. The quota is never met because meeting it is not possible. Those who came up short had their hands cut off. One line, no detail, and it is not a metaphor. A man could not work after that. You wrote a rule you know cannot be obeyed. You are not the one tested on it. The irons that end up by your bed start here. The metal doesn't appear. So you try to settle the account in people. Around 500 taino go out on ships to the slave market in Seville. Roughly 200 do not survive the crossing. And then something happens you did not expect. Isabella stops the sails. The question goes to her theologians, and the answer takes years. The queen waits 5 of them, then decides herself, short and without looking at the list. These are my subjects, send them back. In 1500, some of the sold are shipped home. The largest cargo you ever sent east was people. That is exactly how it is written down. Cargo. Isabella rots. No harbor. Roofs leaking. People dying. It is 1496. Your brother Bartolome walks away from that town and plants a new one by the gold streams. Santo Domingo goes up on the Ozama River, and it stands there still. You are in Castile, begging for ships. You come back 2.5 years later, and the island is in revolt. It was raised by Francisco Roldan, Chief Justice of the colony, the very man you and your brothers appointed. Half the Spaniards are behind him because nobody pays them and nobody feeds them, and to them, you are foreigners. He lays out his terms himself, calm, like a man who has already done the arithmetic. Land, the people on it, and no court over us. So you agree. You have no soldiers, and gold has to reach Castile or your sheet is dead paper. You hand the rebels land and the labor of the people living on it. The land isn't yours, the people even less. A guard cleaned out the warehouse, demanded a bonus, and got one. That is roughly what your peace treaty looks like. And the complaints keep going to Castile. The Colon brothers hang their own men without trial. The crown gave you the lot at once, power, courts, and a cut. They handed you the key to the strongbox and the right to count what is inside. One guess who they send to check. A strange ship drops anchor off Santo Domingo, August 1500, and aboard her is a man sent to judge you. Francisco de Bobadilla, royal investigator with power to settle everything on the spot. His orders are short. Judge over everyone on this island. Everyone includes you. He comes ashore and, without lifting his eyes off the page, says the first thing. The keys, all of them. 1 week, and he holds your house, your papers, your gold, and a ring of warehouse keys heavy as a small stone. Why him? Because the colony has been sending complaints home for 3 years, and the Crown believes settlers over its own admiral. In 2005, his inquiry turned up in the archive at Simancas. 48 pages of sworn testimony, and not one man speaking for you. Pages like that are what gets irons put on a man. You go home in chains. The ship is called La Gorda. Out in the open Atlantic, her captain, Andres Martin, comes down to you with a chisel. Let me knock them off. Nobody will know. You refuse. No, really, a man offers to take the iron off you and you keep it on. It chills your ankles, drags at you with its own weight, and has already rubbed a dark band into your skin. At Cadiz, you walk down the gangway still wearing them, and the chain drags over every plank. Later, you hang the shackles on a nail in your room, and your son writes that you ordered them buried with you. Everyone reads that as wounded pride. What you are keeping is evidence, because you don't throw out damaged goods if you mean to sue. Andres Martin delivered you and vanished from the record, the only man here who offered you help for free. A few weeks later, a royal letter frees you. Property returned, rank retained. They give the rank back easily, because the rank costs them nothing. You got the nameplate, they kept the till. A promotion with no raise. You know that trick. The governorship is power and money, and that you never get back. The monopoly is gone too. Ojeda, Pinzon, Niño, sail your ocean and keep every cargo. And Nicolas de Ovando leaves for Hispaniola with 30 ships, the largest fleet ever sent west. And 1/10 of every crate he brings back is yours. They will just be counting it without you. In 1503, the crown builds a room in Seville for that counting, the Casa de Contratación. Every crate out of the Indies is weighed there, the royal share poured off, the rest entered in the book. Pretty name for a room your 10th goes into and never comes out of. No key for you, of course. None for your son either. Before you sail again, you do something nobody had done. You order 4 notarized copies of your charters and bind them into a book. 4 because you already know the crown will stiff you, and for them that is business as usual. 1 goes to Genoa with the ambassador Niccolo Oderigo. A good thing too. 2 of them sit there still, 5 centuries on. The only thing in this story that got where it was promised. Then you write to the Genoese Bank of St. George, take 1/10 of my income forever. Just lift the tax on bread and wine in the city you left as a boy. The bank replies politely. The money never moves, not a penny. Hot wax under your fingers and you are sealing a letter nobody will open. Off Santo Domingo, you find them getting ready. A big fleet being taken out of the harbor for home. June 1502. You know this air, the heaviness, the long swell from the southeast, the high combed cloud. So you send a warning in. A storm is coming, don't let them out. Ovando, they say, only laughed, and you weren't even allowed to shelter under the shore. The fleet sails. Within a day, the hurricane puts 20-odd ships on the bottom. Aboard them were Francisco de Bobadilla, who took your keys, and Francisco Roldan, who turned the island against you. Both drown in one night. Your 4 wrecks sit it out behind a headland and come through whole. The sea judged faster than the court. Only the sea didn't pay you either. The sea stops being kind. Shipworm eats your hulls from the inside, and 2 of them stop floating. A year and 5 days you sit aground off the coast of Jamaica. You sleep on a deck that isn't going anywhere. Salt dries on your lips. The villages nearby sell you food, then stop selling. because a year is a long time for guests who never leave. So you open your almanac. Lunar eclipse, the 29th of February. You walk out to them and announce, "I am taking your moon away." The moon goes out on schedule. The light on your face turns red. Food arrives at dawn. Your finest hour at sea, and in it you are a beggar with a book. And it isn't the book that saves you. Your clerk, Diego Mendez, paddles a dugout across the channel for help and gets there. In his will, he asks for one word cut into his grave: canoa, canoe. How did you find your way across an ocean and back 4 times running? Because what people still say about you is one line: lucky fool. A lucky amateur who couldn't lay a course. That is the myth I am going to kill, and for once in this story, it is in your favor. Your instruments are poor, your latitude sights worse. You shrank the Earth by a quarter and the distance to Asia by several times over, and still you come out on your own islands every single time, by compass, hourglass, and instinct, because you found the one thing that outlived every island and every king: wind. Out on the belt of the trades, home on the westerlies further north, Castilian pilots ran your loop for 300 years, not out of respect. The road just worked. At arithmetic, you failed. At sea, you did not. November 1504, Sanlúcar. You come ashore ill. Your joints won't bend. You walk on someone's arm. Isabella dies 19 days later. Now your sheet is finished, even though on paper it all still holds. There were 2 signatures on it, and the one that was kind to you will never sign anything again. Ferdinand doesn't tear up the contract. Why would he? He calls in lawyers and asks one question. What does it say, literally? That costs you more than tearing it up. He doesn't argue with you. He reads. Slowly. You can't stay on a horse anymore, which means you need a permit. A royal one, to ride a mule. Yes, seriously, Castilian law rations the animals to protect breeding stock. The man who put an ocean on the map queues at a clerk's table for a chit to ride a donkey. The straw underfoot is warm, the mule's coat wet with night fog, and you drag yourself after the court from Segovia to Salamanca, and every move costs you a week of your life. Ferdinand offers a deal. Give up the governorship, take an estate with an income, and go quietly. You refuse. Not out of pride. You don't need land. You need an admission that your sheet is worth something. That is what the irons on your nail are for. What does refusing cost? You, nothing. Your grandson, everything. The 20th of May, 1506, Valladolid. The legend says you die penniless and forgotten. Pretty legend, because a pauper is easier to pity than a creditor. Look at your own household. You have servants. You rent a decent house. Ingots come in from Hispaniola. Your share of the mines does arrive, just not the share on the page. Historians went through the accounts and say it plainly. By the standards of your century, you die a rich man. You were never poor for a single day. You just never got paid. And it turns out, those are 2 different things. Your will gives you away completely. Wax pools on the table by your elbow. Dust lies over the sheets. You cut the property into parts and lock the main body into an entail, an inheritance nobody may sell or divide. You have watched people pull a promise apart before. Order to your sons. Sign only one way. El Almirante, the Admiral. Diego is to keep prizing out the 10th and the titles. To Beatriz Enriquez de Arana, mother of your younger boy Fernando, a sum, and a line saying this weighs on your conscience. She never became your wife. She dies in Cordoba 15-odd years later, and the money on that line mostly never reaches her. And across the room, on a nail, hang the shackles. 5 years since Cadiz. They creak in the draft when the door opens. You never did take them down. They sold you a golden age, caravels in the sun, a landing on a white beach, an empire fed for 2 centuries on silver. Look under that picture. The shine was never wealth. It was somebody else's work, wrung out and polished up. And the first man into the business never got paid on his own paper, because there was nobody to complain to. The man judging the case was the man who owed the money, and he held the pen in that court. All the first man kept off that paper was iron on a nail. Even your bones don't lie still. Valladolid, Las Cuevas, Santo Domingo, Havana. They come home only in 1898 because Spain is losing Cuba and takes you back while it can. In Seville, your tomb rides on the shoulders of 4 bronze heralds, Castile, León, Aragon, Navarre. 4 crowns carrying the man those crowns still owed. A DNA test in 2006 confirmed part of you really is under that marble. 4 centuries of shipping a dead man back and forth across the sea. The debt stays where it was. 2 years after the funeral, Diego does exactly what you told him. He files suit against the king. Think about that. He drags the monarchy into its own council before its own judges. The Crown Prosecutor's page is heavy with seals, and they knock together when he lifts the paper. He answers calmly, not raising his voice, like a man explaining something to a child. Privileges are a royal gift. A gift can be taken back whenever the king likes. In plain words, they gave it, then changed their mind. The case gets a name, Pleitos Colombinos, the Columbus lawsuits, and it runs until the 1790s. By 1511, the judges rule partly for Diego. The governorship of Hispaniola comes back. The viceroy title stays disputed another generation. So your sheet was a good sheet. Now try paying your landlord 2 weeks' rent with it. Diego outlives you by about 20 years. The lawsuit outlives him. His widow picks it up, Maria de Toledo, first vice-reine of the Indies, and carries it another 10 years. Why would she? Because your grandson Luis is growing up, and she has no intention of handing his inheritance to the crown. She is a niece of the Duke of Alba, and she runs the whole thing from a stone palace above the Ozama River, where the floor is cold underfoot, even at noon. Your claim reached your grandson only because of her. Retellings almost never mention her. The most stubborn party in a fight with the Spanish Empire wore a widow's black and died on that island with the case still in her hands. Valladolid, 1536. Charles V has had enough, because a lawsuit against yourself is an awkward thing to own, so he hands the case to his own confessor. Cardinal Garcia de Loaiza, president of the Council of the Indies, gets an order 2 words long. Close it. The cardinal closes it, with a deal. The seal comes down on the paper with a dull knock, and a 3-generation argument is over. Luis gives up the viceroyalty, the governorship, and every claim. Out of that room he walks with 2 titles, Duke of Veragua and Marquis of Jamaica, plus a stretch of coast in Panama he never rules for a day, and 10,000 ducats a year. Gold ducats, not small change like maravedis. That money would fit out all 3 ships that left Palos, new every single year. Enough for the grandson, not enough for your old age. Nobody in that room was ever shown the shackles. Say it with me one last time. There is always a middleman. This one was called a cardinal. 9 years later, prospectors crack open Cerro Rico at Potosi. Not a vein, a mountain, a whole mountain of silver. The fleets ride home so low in the water that silver itself gets cheaper and prices climb across Europe. And not a gram of it is yours because Potosi is Peru, far past the line drawn on your paper, and you weren't the one drawing it. What they left you was nearer and smaller. Sugar, pearls, placer gold. And the continent went to somebody else back in 1507 when a German mapmaker, Martin Waldseemüller, read Amerigo Vespucci's letters and printed the word America on his chart. It stuck for good. The money they took off you in court. The name they simply gave to a printer. Thanks, Martin. Go through it once more, quickly, with your body. Santa Fe dust down your collar and 7 years waiting at other men's doors. Wet salt on your lips off Jamaica. The scrape of a hull on a reef on Christmas night. The cold of iron on your ankles on the gangway at Cadiz. Warm wax under your fingers as you seal the copy bound for Genoa. And a nail in the wall by your bed with your shackles on it. 5 years to your last breath. The paper promised you 1/10 of a hemisphere. Forever. They paid 2 titles and a yearly income to your grandson to make him stop. And here is the question you answer, not me. For the work you did, were you paid better then than that work is paid today, or worse? And something out of all this is still alive. Your youngest, Fernando, spent his life collecting books in any language he could get hold of. He built one of the largest private libraries in Europe and left it to Seville, the city he lived in. It outlasted your sheet, the lawsuit, and the empire itself. You can still walk in and touch it. Tell me in the comments whether life paid you better then or now, because I read all of them. Subscribe if you want to keep going through other people's chests with me. And there is a day already on the channel where a fighter called Flama could have walked off the sand 4 times over and stayed for the sand. See you.